Let's spend a few minutes and talk about creating relationship models. And for this example, I want to use a high-tech startup called Network Magic, which has recently announced a family of network routers that they brought to market at what the market considers a very favorable price point and a very nice functionality. And the company is growing very rapidly. So the support organization is experiencing an ongoing problem of developing the level of support readiness that they want to maintain. They have a desired level and they have a existing level, and the existing level is less than desired, of course. So this creates a gap. Now, as I said before, or continue to say, we start with the problem, or what appears to be the problem, and we elaborate from that point by asking two questions. For every entity, or for every element that we have placed on the relationship map, we ask, what does this influence? And what influences this? Those are the only two questions that I ask repeatedly, over and over and over again. And the idea is to seek out loop structures, balancing and reinforcing loops, because it turns out that the loop structures tend to have more influence over the way that a set of relationships are actually behaving overall than direct influences. Not to say that the direct influences have no relevance, it's just that the loop structures drive the behavior of the relationship model. So typically in this type of situation, trying to develop support readiness, the organization hires and trains support staff. That adds to this trained support staff, which adds to the support or increases the support readiness, which reduces the support gap. And so this is the way that they actually deal with this situation. Though, because the organization is growing on an ongoing basis, the user base is growing, it has a negative impact on support readiness. If the company sells one router a month at the end of a year, they have 12 customers to support. In a healthy organization, customers tend to accumulate, and the more they accumulate, the more support it usually takes to take care of them. So this is a reinforcing structure, because if you walk this loop, there are an even number of minus relationships. If the number is 0 or even, it's a reinforcing structure, and if it's odd, it's a balancing structure. So this is a virtuous reinforcing structure in terms of the company itself, but it's a negative reinforcing structure in terms of support, because it simply continues to make their life miserable on an ongoing basis. Now, while this is happening, because the company is accumulating customers, the rest of the organization has an employee problem, in that they have a current number of employees, which is simply fewer than they need on an ongoing basis, because they have to ramp up production and marketing and sales and all of the other aspects of the organization in addition to support. And where do you think the company finds employees that know the company and know the product and know the customer? Well, they steal them from support, of course, because that's the only place to find people that are knowledgeable in those three dimensions. So the existing support staff is rated to add to current employees to solve the staffing problem for the rest of the organization, which ends up making support's life even more miserable on an ongoing basis. And as it turns out, the current employees add to users, add to orders, which then adds to required employees, so that we have another virtuous reinforcing structure, because it develops the business it makes the organizational problem more difficult on an ongoing basis because it continues to add to required employees, but it makes the organization's life difficult in terms of having to continue to add additional employees. So overall, we have a structure where support's life is miserable to start with, and the rest of the organization is making their life more miserable on an ongoing basis because it's stealing their employees. And as this is developed, it's simply from point to point continuing to ask the same question: what does this influence and what influences it? Looking for loops. And the difficult thing I find on an ongoing basis is trying to figure out what to leave out, because everything is connected. There are so many things that you could add to it, though many of the things that I initially add to a relationship model turn out to be not really that relevant to the situation that I'm trying to figure out how to deal with. And what I do is, when I find one of those, I take them out and I usually stick them down in the corner someplace. I want to capture them for future reference. So if someone says, what about, well, I have a list of the items that I've already thought about and notes on it as to why it was taken out. One of the things I really like about Kumu is that I can put comments on elements or on connections and on loop labels. I mean, if it's an entity that exists within the relationship model, I can put notes on it. And I find that it's crucial to add notes to a relationship model in lots and lots of places, because while you're developing the model, you have a sense of what it's about. I mean, you typically understand it to the point where you can read between the lines. But if you come back and look at it 6 months or a year later, I mean, I look at them and sometimes ask myself, what was I smoking when I did this? Because aspects of it simply don't make any sense unless I read my own notes. So we try to go ahead to document it to a point where it's understandable. The models that I develop these days, I document with video overviews such as this, so that you don't find a lot of notes in the model itself. Just a point of evolution. And now in the next segment of this series, I'll talk about how we look at this relationship model to figure out what to do with it. I find it extremely important when I develop a relationship model to not confuse what the problem is and what the solution is, so that I have to develop a relationship model that it helps me understand what's causing the problem, and then from there, how do I then alter that set of relationships to cause tomorrow to be different from yesterday. So I hope you found this informative, and I'll see you in another video soon. Bye.